Hey everybody, in this video I wanted to kind of discuss and talk about Pokemon card and Yu-Gi-Oh card investing and flipping. It's become a bit of a side hustle for me, but what I really want to address in this video, not just the money making or wealth creation aspect, but really the issues with it and the problems with flipping. Now, basically, this video was inspired because I'm seeing more and more of these like Pokemon card investing and flipping YouTube channels pop up. And some of them I really like, they're very informative, or you can tell that they have a lot of credibility, like uh, Pokenomics with Rafi. But then, some of them, and I'm going to share some cards while I'm talking here. Uh, Rocket Snorlax, common. Some of them, you can tell they're just trying to figure it out themselves and they're making a lot of mistakes, and maybe they're trying to appear like the experts when that's not the case. Um, and then there's some in between that are really trying to be transparent or honest, and some are doing a good job with it and sharing their mistakes, and others are working on that. Here's a Charizard Illustrator promo card. Um, so for me and myself, I know some of my YouTubers just care about the personal development aspects of my videos, or um, the studying and academics. But this is a cool little fun video that I'm gonna make anyways because I just love it. Japanese base set Blastoise in decent condition. The front is very well centered, almost flawless. Very hard to find. Japanese centering is usually pretty awful. Um, so I recently stumbled across this new YouTube channel, which in some ways I like, and in many ways I'm kind of put off by. It's called PokeFuel, and the YouTube thumbnails are great. You could tell this guy's really well into design and everything. He has the Pokemats and um, you know these graded cards. And here's another one: Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, common. Um, and I just kind of wanted to kind of share my own trials and tribulations with flipping, because it's not easy, and I've been able to flip some stuff well, and other stuff not so well. This is a Japanese base Charmeleon. So I think, as a warning, it's a lot harder than you think. And honestly, I believe most people will come out of it failing, breaking even, or doing worse. It's not all sunshines and roses. And currently, we're in a bull market where everything's going up. And even then, I've seen some mistakes with big retraces that I've bought in wrong at. And I think that's something I've been trying to highlight more, because there's a lot of people who are, you know, uh, just talking about the good behind it. This is a Southern Islands War Turtle from the movie promo. I think the first ever movie. Really cool vintage card. Condition's not so great. And with PokeFuel, respectfully, you know, nothing personal here. I love certain aspects of your channel, but to be honest, when I saw his first video he dropped, it's a brand new channel, and it got about 5,000 views, and it was titled something like, how to get into flipping Pokemon cards and the mistakes to be made. And the first 10 minutes was him like showing off all the cards he graded. And then as I watched it, I just got more kind of disappointed, and I felt a little icky watching it, because then you find out all these, like, he spent about $1,000 buying these cards, and basically he reveals that he was unable to sell any of them. And he spent the rest of the video, in the next 10 minutes, trying to make sense of why he couldn't sell any of them, trying to give his own rationality as to why, but really just being confused about it. So here's a Clefable Hollow base set 2. The back is pretty good. Not great, maybe PSA 7-8. I got this one for free for buying a base set unlimited booster. And I just felt kind of unhappy about that. I mean, I left a respectful comment and I tried to point out some of the good things he did. But, you know, it's a channel I'll definitely keep tabs on because I could still learn a lot from his mistakes. But I didn't feel good about how he presented the video, how he titled it. And I did see that a lot of the comments were positive, a lot of likes were positive, and I was a little flabbergasted about that because if I posted a video like that, I think the reception wouldn't be as positive for similar reasons. And I think the biggest thing is that, you know, I think there's certain fundamentals that you can have when assessing a business that you can't necessarily have when assessing a card. Here's a Zygarde Hollow, another card I got for free. This one's in pristine, almost, well, near mint condition. And so it was just, I think the biggest thing was I was unhappy with that, unhappy with the amount of people who are drooling to get into flipping. And I understand some of that just comes with the increased demand. And I'm all for buying and reselling cards as well to make a profit as a side hustle. But at the same time, you know, when there's too much of it, when there's an excess of that, that's where I start to get a little unhappy because, you know, there's a lot of people making bad decisions or making bad, giving bad advice. And so with channels like Pokenomics, I think one thing that needs to be kind of stated more often and more from the get-go is credibility. And with Pokenomics, I was a little unsure, but then after watching a lot of his videos, I realized, wow, he actually has or used to have $1 million Pokemon card collection, and he grew that. So that's something that's credible. Like there's a proven track record there. And so that's something I feel like should be more mentioned often from the start. And that wasn't mentioned in his video. And for me, I want to mention that just to kind of re-emphasize that point. For me, I started Pokemon collecting about a year ago, so not long ago. And in my videos, I've been more often to talk about my failures than my successes. So that's something that's not really done often. You know, for me, I have made some successful transactions. I was able to successfully flip a base set unlimited graded Mewtwo for 300 that I bought for about 200. But, you know, there's some more major mistakes that I talk about more often that, you know, kind of destroy any of the gains I've made. And the biggest one would be the base set unlimited BGS 8.5 Charizard that I bought for about, you know, 2.5K that now sells for 1.7K because of a significant retrace. So once again, the video is a warning, and I want to get specific about what you should be careful of. Because for me, you know, I've made a lot of small flips, but that one big flip has just kind of destroyed all of the potential gains I've gotten. And what I want to say is that when you watch any videos like PokeFuels or anyone else's, and no disrespect of PokeFuel, you know, because I think he did try and turn it into some type of educational lesson. It just took way too long, and the way he kind of clickbaited wasn't most enjoyable for me. I'm trying to be nice here, but make sure you ask these questions. Are there any significant fundamentals behind his reasoning? Or is he just saying this is going to be a good card, this is cheap? And what I think that the YouTubers, I watch a lot of others that I really enjoy. PokeJebel really seems to know what he's doing. Uh, Arbok Stan seems to know what he's doing, but they're still very transparent about how new they are. But when I say fundamentals, I wish they would be more specific about fundamentals. I even think Pokenomics, he could be more specific. And so when I say fundamentals, like there has to be certain solid, indisputable, objective facts that you can use to say, okay, that really is a good investment. And I define these specifics as low population. We're talking under double digits or even triple digits, depending on the card and the demand. And then sheer proven demand, which can also be quantified. We're talking, frequency of eBay sold listings. That's one. So these are just two fundamentals that I think aren't really mentioned often or just are kind of lacking. Going back to the PokeFuel example, and I don't mean to pick on him, but that's just the one in my mind. There are others by other YouTubers. It's just like, this card is a great investment. There's this one channel I was watching, and it was like Addictive. It was either Addictive Me or Red or Blue, one of those two channels. He was talking about this card. I think it was the. It wasn't this one, but he did talk about this one as well, the Charizard Illustrator promo. He talked about this one and the Trainer Red Pokemon promo card. And he just kept saying, this card is gonna skyrocket. It has to skyrocket. It's gonna do so well. It's gonna be so expensive. It's just gonna grow. The price is gonna explode. You have to get on this card. And there's no discussion on fundamentals, just a constant, repeated emphasis that he believed that the card was going to go up significantly in price and that you had to buy it now. And, I genuinely felt that he didn't have any bad intentions, but he just kind of really had no framework for why, with sound reasoning, that was a strong investment. He just kind of went off kind of gut instinct or feel, which I think is, there's a time and place for gut, but then there's a time and place where no, that gut instinct is horrible. I mean, there's so many people who just choose stocks off feel that do horribly. I mean, imagine that if you put your life savings on, Enron because you felt it was good. That's not a good enough reason to just invest in something. And so even though he had like good intentions, I felt like he was missing like a solid analytical framework or fundamentals for why. So with PokeFuel, I think he did mention that one card was below 50 pop, which was good. But then all the rest, he was just like, these are great artworks. I love the design. And, a lot of YouTubers do mention, you buy a card because you like the design, you like it yourself. And that's good enough. But is it enough as an investment? And apparently for him, it was not. He was unable to sell what seemed to be 10 graded slabs from all these different modern sets, a couple unlimited WotC vintage cards. He was unable to sell any of these and flip them. And it was rather sad. So I totally understand where he's coming from. Some cards I listed for a while and was unable to sell. And then if I got lucky, some of them eventually I got an offer for and sold. I recently sold a PSA 9 first edition Brock's Onyx for the record price it's ever sold for, $50. And I had that listed for ages, months. But there's a lot of these cards here that I have listed for. Some I have chosen not to list. I might hold this base Blastoise for a while, and I'm unable to sell them for. And you get that feeling where you refuse to let them go for break even. That guy, he got a little bit desperate, and he was like, I gotta sell these for break even because I get to keep the cash flow going. And I found that rather sad. Like, you do you like the cards, or do you just want to sell them, and then you're compromising. You're just selling them for what you paid for them just to keep the cash going. I mean, was that really worth it? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. If I mean, break even's better than at a loss, but still, I mean, it's kind of. Um, I don't think it's as solid. So what other fundamentals do you choose to use um, if not population or demand? Um, and what else do you consider? There's also how that population's increasing. You know, a lot of these people are just buying modern cards. He bought all these random assortments of modern cards from all these sets from 2012 to 2020. Sets I've never heard of, Pokemon I've never heard of. And, you know, those could be reprinted. Maybe they are getting reprinted. Or maybe they're just so obscure from some random set that less people care about them. And he went on and on about how, you know, maybe he, you know, people just didn't care about these cards. And that's part of demand as well. And that's also another issue, you know. I think a lot of these people who are like, oh, I'm just going to make all this money from Pokemon cards, they try and just jump into it. And since there's like what seems like hundreds of different modern sets, they just start picking and choosing from random things. Like, oh, I'm going to choose 2012 and then 2013 and then Unbroken Bonds and this one and that one. And there's all these, like he bought these Latios cards that I'd never heard of. And, you know, as a collector, if that's what you want for your own collection, that's totally fine. But to just think, okay, I'm just going to buy these and then other people will naturally want them for higher prices, I mean, that's just based on speculation, especially if it's an obscure set. I mean, I try and be more more diligent, and I try and stay vintage, you know, vintage with my cards. I was very scared to go into any modern for that reason. And, you know, here I have even Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm staying fairly vintage. I got Pharaoh Servant, Secret Rare, Toon World, of course, Magic Ruler. And when I finally did start to get into modern, like, I can't lie, I did get tempted. Shining Rayquaza. That's a modern card. I was hesitant, but I was, you know, tempted because so many other YouTubers, they're just so into modern. And, you know, there's demand for modern as well, but I just don't see why people are just so unrestrained with modern, and when they consider that investing. I think modern has its place and you can make money with it, but it's tough. This Shining Rayquaza is one of the few modern cards I'm very confident in. I'm seeing more demand for this card than even some vintage. So I love this card myself. I also bought it because I love it. So I actually bought and sold one, and then right after I was like, I love it so much I have to buy another one just for myself. So other than that, though, you know, people are just kind of unhinged going into it. And I'm not gonna lie, I was tempted because I saw all these other YouTubers, you know, Twice Baked Jake and now Deep Pocket Monster. They're just going so ham into to modern. They just love modern, and that's great for them for a collecting standpoint. But I'm just like really hesitant. I mean, unless it's a Japanese promo, like you have to be careful with modern. They don't. It's super susceptible to reprinting, and then on top of that, you know, is the demand really there when there's like hundreds of different sets and cards and thousands of cards you can collect? These are really cool modern that I got for free. I got these as part of a vintage collection, just as some bonus cards. This common is one of my favorites. Since I play Pokemon Go a lot, I just love that they were able to choose out some of the rarest Pokemon in Pokemon Go. You have a Lucario, a Gible, and a Giratina, or a Garchomp and a Giratina. So I'm still trying to figure it out and really nail down if there are really any solid fundamentals that you can really pick out when you're flipping. And it's just not as stable as something like a stock or a company that you're assessing, because as a company, you can at least determine that, this is an asset that's producing value, and there's a consistent level of maybe income that it's producing, cash flow every year, and you can see how that's growing, decreasing. You could tell how strong that competitive advantage is, or how simple the business is to continue that or not continue that over the over the years. And then you can do a discounted present value formula to determine how much that's worth. With cards, they're not asset producing things, they're commodities, simply based on the speculation of how much the card itself will be worth, how much someone in the future may be willing to pay for that. So it's really not as determinate. And because of that, what fundamentals can you use? There's population, which helps to an extent. Here's a near mint Dark Machamp Hollow, one of my favorite cards here. Beautiful back from Team Rocket. There's just not as much fundamentals. I mean, yes, there's population. So, like artwork, especially if you can do something like a base set first edition Charizard, there's that population number. But then there's also, what if no one really cares about this? How can you really know for sure someone's going to care for this in the future or really pay more? There's really no real way. I mean, I mentioned eBay sold listings. It's one way you can tell frequency or desire, but to what extent? You really can't just get a numbers driven gauge of other cards. I mean, I'm priced out of first edition base, so what about another card like let's say just a Team Rocket Dark Machamp, unlimited or first edition? Like, you can't just get a gauge of the general population and just and an entire population or generation of people and the frequency or speed of their demand or willingness to pay more for it. Maybe not. Maybe in 10 years some people just lose interest in the hobby. That's totally possible. Or in 5 years or in 1 year. Or they open more and more booster boxes and the supply goes up. You just never know. There's no real guarantee that the price is going to continue to rise because people are going to continue to pay more. Now, maybe there's a strong belief that could happen or feeling that could happen because Pokemon's such a strong franchise. But for individual cards, it's so hard to say. Especially with some of those cards that PokeFuel mentioned. Like, he bought these 2013 Latios and Latias. I personally didn't like the design, but he loved it, and that's good for him. As a collector, you get what you want. But as an investor or someone who's trying to buy and resell these, to make money, that was a obscure set that I'd never heard of. And then what are you truly banking on that someone is going to say, okay, I'm just going to, for that specific set, after dozens of sets, that specific one, I'm going to like the Latios and PSA 9 so much, then I'm going to pay $75 rather than the $50 you paid for it. Maybe, or it just gets lost and forgotten over time. And so he did mention demand and certain demand of certain cards. And so maybe you stick around Charizards and Venusaurs and Blastoise and you just stay around those for all eternity and not branch out. But even then, who's to say that a certain Charizard from a certain set is going to stay popular? So it is really a tough thing. And for me, I don't have a good answer. I've definitely branched out. I'm not going to lie. A lot of these cards are definitely no longer the Charizards or Blastoises that I used to focus on. And part of that was because of budget. This base set Japanese Nidorinos, pristine condition, Kangaskhan Hollow, Jungle. Dark Alakazam. But at the same time, you just never know. Like, these are unlimited too. And he did mention a good point. Like, are the unlimited pops as desirable or just too high supply for anyone to care about? You just never know. And so these are questions that you should ask. And that's the big warning. Like, at the end of the day, it is a speculative asset class to invest in. And if you, if you just screw up and spend just too much time thinking that you have this solid investment intact and that it's bound to go up and that you're just making money hand over fist, it may come crashing down faster than you think. And for me, I think overall I've made some solid flips, but you could see all the cards that I have been unable to flip or haven't listed. I would say most of those I've listed, but many I haven't because I want to keep them. But a lot of them just will not sell. And for me, I'm just being patient. I'm willing to wait and see if they will sell for higher prices. If not, maybe, that's just something for my personal collection. But in total, for me at least, if I had to check myself and ask myself, how much profit have I really made from all these flips? It's probably under $500. And I've probably invested, in terms of those cards, maybe $3,000 into collecting them. If I were to liquidate all that and break even, I would get that back. But that's considerable. And minus the Charizard, I would say, okay, if you took out the Charizard that I paid for, then I probably spent around $1,500, $2,000. With the Charizard, that's more about maybe $4,500. But still, that's not a lot. So I'm clearly not a great, side hustler or reflipper. Not horrible, but not outstanding. And so I think, a long story short, you have to be careful with this stuff. You don't want to overextend. I definitely overextended when I purchased the Charizard. Since then, I've been able to stay within my budget of $500 a month, and it's been tough. It's been very hard and tempting, and I think once again I just want to emphasize that whole warning that I've been trying to say, which is that you have to be careful. You have to be careful. You can't just trust these gurus and these people who may present themselves as gurus and may actually be trying to figure it out themselves or really haven't figured it out. And just use the money that you can afford, knowing that there's a chance that you may not make any money from this. So I like to approach it as something where, worst case situation is you keep them for yourself and you liquidate them at the cost that you paid them for, or maybe even a little bit under. I think for me, I don't see them ever going to zero. I think at worst, they'll keep market value, or at least 70-80% of it. So that you always have, I feel like you have at least that to kind of, keep yourself happy with. But, realize and be okay with that as a possibility. And that's something that I've had to live with, and I've definitely made choices that I'm going to show you some cards that I've definitely failed at with these. There's a good amount. There's cards I paid $60-$70 for, hoping that they would climb, and instead of climbing, they actually dropped. So here's one example. There's an English version of this I have. This is a Japanese, which is in more pristine condition. But I have an English version as well of the Groudon Kyogre, which I just thought looked super cool. One of my favorite legendaries. And you combine them together to see the artwork. I bought these for about two for around $60, $70, I believe. And they were climbing when I bought them. Now they've dropped to around $25, $30. Tragic. And then there's another set of what was it? It was the stained glass Hidden Fates, Articuno, Zapdos, and what's the last one? Moltres. And guess what happened? They dropped in value. I bought them for around $40, $50, and they've dropped to around $25, $30. And honestly, the reason for that was I watched Twice Baked Jake's video. I love the card, and I bought two for myself, but also to resell potentially. And I just figured, Hidden Fates is a hot set. These are really good cards. From what I heard, they were promo cards, so they came from a promo set that's not easy to be reprinted. And for whatever reason, they've dropped in value. I'm assuming more of those came out in that promo set, even though we didn't think they would be reprinted. And that's info that's another part of it. You have to get this info. And I was unable to find that info. And I still have trouble finding that. I don't know where he gets it, but I guess Bulbapedia. But you don't know where these come from. How do you know? I didn't know when they would be reprinted, how many would be reprinted, how the populations would soar because of that. I didn't know. All I do know is there's a PSA population report sheet. So they must have reprinted where that came from, and the prices just dropped. So that's unfortunate, and that's another part of it. You have to do your research and figure out, okay, where did this come from? Will they reprint again? And if they do reprint again, how many more will be in circulation? And that last question is something that I still need to work on figuring out. That's why I love vintage a lot. They won't ever reprint it again. There's still a few booster boxes floating around, but it's smaller and almost negligible. Sometimes not negligible, but that's part of it. But with something like modern, they could be reprinting 1 million, 100,000, 10,000. I don't know. Maybe no one else knows. And so, big issue with it. I know Hidden Fates is going through reprints now, but the info is just not as clear as where it's coming from. And that's what you have to plug into. You have to figure out, what are the big Pokemon news sites? And then how do you figure that out? Figure out, where that card's coming from. If you're buying a card, where exactly is it coming from? Not just the booster set, like Hidden Fates or Unbroken Bonds or Steam Siege, but okay, of that set, where did that card come from? If it was a promo card, did it come from an Elite Trainer box? If it came from an Elite Trainer box, how many are in circulation? What are the chances they'll reprint that versus the booster box? What are the differences? Do they have exclusive cards in the Elite Trainer box or some other type of promo box that isn't in the actual set? So that's it. End the rant there. Hope you enjoyed.